guys, Robbie here from CFSB Nutrition at CrossFit South Bend. Today we're going to talk about why eating habits matter. So, to put the point simply, our culture tends to be obsessed with different ways of eating, whether that's keto, carnivore, intermittent fasting, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, Atkins, South Beach, macros, high carb, low carb, calories, all these different things. But we tend to forget that how you eat and your eating habits make a tremendous amount of difference to your overall long-term success with any type of diet. And furthermore, these habits apply no matter what way of eating you adopt. So it doesn't matter if you're a vegan, doesn't matter if you're doing paleo, doesn't matter if you're doing keto, you still need to know what to do when it comes to handling peer pressure, and that's going to apply no matter what way of eating you adopt. So while we tend to be obsessed with the question of what you should eat, which is certainly an important question, don't get me wrong. What you eat makes a difference, and you're not going to get the results you want no matter what they are when it comes to health and fitness just by eating cookies and pizza, although I'd like that to be the case. While that question of what you eat is very important, in a lot of ways, your long-term success with any way of eating comes down far more to food habits than anything else. And this is where coaching can come in, because you can't just pick up a book, read about these things, and magically transform your habits. That doesn't happen. No way of eating magically makes you have new habits and makes you forget, the past 20 or 30 or 40 years of habits that you've adopted. It takes time and practice. So let's talk about some of the really important food habits that are necessary to master in order to even be able to navigate any way of eating. So when it comes to social things, how do you navigate peer pressure? How do you deal with someone who's constantly telling you to eat a certain way? Sometimes this is friends and social situations. Another situation that can happen with family or even coworkers is food pushers. People who will incessantly push a food on you and say that you have to have it, even though you don't have to have it. It's just their own hang-up about them wanting you to eat it to feel better about themselves, or thinking that giving you food is love. You need to be able to navigate those situations. What do you do about unsupportive people? These aren't necessarily people who are pushing food on you, but what about people who, you're trying to eat healthy, but they'll eat Cheetos in front of you? What do you do about those types of people? How do you navigate that situation? And what do you do about celebrations? Are you the person who goes out for a birthday celebration and gets a salad? Are you someone who goes hog wild every time, your second cousin has a birthday or a promotion? Navigating celebrations and knowing which things are worth celebrating and which things aren't is a really important thing to be able to navigate. And we help people with all of these different things in our programs. We help people deal with food pushers, for example, by saying no one else should care about what you eat besides you. And if they do, you have to ask yourself, why are you hanging around them? And this is something that's built up over time through practice. You don't just know the right thing to do and magically go do it. It takes time and practice and repetition. What about emotional habits? So there's certain deeper things, certainly, whether it's, sort of disordered eating relationships, or whether it's anorexia, bulimia, things like that, that can only be handled by, a certified professional. But there are things that we can talk about in our program, like using food as reward and punishment. Someone saying, oh, I deserve a cookie because I had a hard day at work. Or someone who uses it as a way to deal with stressful situations. Is someone, overeating or undereating to compensate for stress that they have in their life? Maybe we can work on, objectively reducing their stress by making it so they don't check email all the time, even right before they go to bed, or texts or things like that, and we up the amount of things that help them relax throughout the day, whether that's doing meditation or going for a walk, things like that. And then, are you someone who immediately gives into cravings? Do you think, oh my gosh, I get this signal that I have to have a certain food, and then you just immediately fall prey to it without having any way of pushing back against it? Again, these are all things that I could tell you right now the exact right thing to do in these situations, but it's not just going to magically transform overnight. It takes habit, it takes practice, it takes repetition of the right thing to do to get better at these things. Just knowing the answer to these, the right way to go about dealing with these particular situations doesn't always yield the right practice. So it takes, habit and repetition. how do you eat? Do you eat fast or slow? People who are fast eaters, guilty as charged. This is a food habit that I've worked on for a long time, still need to keep working on. You know, you don't absorb food quite as well, you don't digest it quite as well, you're not getting as many nutrients. So sitting down, eating food slowly helps tremendously. In our on-the-go culture, people tend to eat, in their car, at a desk while answering email or text or things like that. That's not conducive to health overall, and performance and weight loss and whatever other health and fitness metric you want to use. And then do you eat with others or do you eat alone? Obviously sometimes we have to eat alone, but having that communal atmosphere, whether it's friends or family, makes a big difference. So again, in a world obsessed with keto, carnivore, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, macros, calories, low carb, high fat, high carb, low fat, Atkins, Zone, South Beach, and I could name 20 others. In a culture obsessed with these things, we forget about these things. And the truth is, these things apply no matter what way of eating you adopt. And if you think reading a book on paleo or vegan or knowing the right foods to eat is going to magically transform these things, something has gone terribly wrong, because this requires practice and repetition. And this is where having a coach and some support and accountability in navigating these situations can be really helpful. And everyone's unique. I just had someone come in the other day. They had no issues with peer pressure, but using food as an emotional crutch was a big one. So everyone's different, and we have to navigate those particular things that are difficult for them. Lastly, here are some key facts about habits that you want to keep in mind that are crucial to remember if you want to be long-term successful with changing your ways of eating. Habits are crucial to long-term success. Again, I could give you the Whole30 book. I could give you a list of things that you should be eating and tell you what to avoid. But if knowing what to do are enough, everyone would be rich and skinny, right? So it's not just enough to know what to eat. You have to know how to navigate habits. And again, that isn't just a matter of book knowledge. It's a matter of actually going out in the real world and practicing it, and having situations where you fail at it, where you mess up, and then learning from that and getting better. Again, in our what to eat culture, we're obsessed with 21-day detox, 30-day cleanse, 7-day reboot, all these different resets. But here's the deal. Habits take months to years to change or establish, not days or weeks. So while you can do something for 21 days or 30 days or 7 days, don't kid yourself into thinking your habits are magically going to transform as a result. And this is why we believe in the idea of long-term coaching to help people. It's because I can tell someone the best way to eat, but their habits aren't magically going to transform just because they see that list. New habits, are going to take time to form, but the hardest ones, honestly, are working down those 20 to 30 year, 40 year bad habits of, constantly drinking soda or having pizza every couple days. Those are the ones that really take time to work on. Number 3, no way of eating magically fixes these issues. Obviously, we are fans of some ways of eating over others. So for example, we believe in real whole food. I generally think the Whole30 is a really good place to start for a lot of people. But that being said, no way of eating up here, including the Whole30, magically fixes all these habits. It's a great start, but it doesn't magically make it so that, I never have to deal with peer pressure again, or I don't use food as an emotional crutch. That takes time to develop. It can give you a running head start, but it doesn't fix those issues. So, you can pick up a book on any of these ways of eating, but it isn't going to fix these things. And lastly, they take practice and repetition to develop. And this is where having a coach can be really beneficial. There's that famous saying, any lawyer who represents himself as a fool for a client. And this really does apply when it comes to nutrition. It doesn't mean anyone's a fool necessarily, but what it means is that when you set the rules for yourself about, I shouldn't give in to peer pressure, or I shouldn't use food as a reward and punishment, you can change the rules on yourself, right? You say, I'm in this situation, I'm going to change it just this once. But if you have some accountability, some support, some guidance, that will help you to make these habits stick long-term and stay with you so you can be successful long-term. That's really the key, is getting repeated practice and repetition so that you know how to navigate these situations, and ultimately you become a master where these things are just almost easy for you to deal with. All right, guys, so hopefully that was helpful. Again, no way of eating accounts for food habits, and these food habits apply no matter what way of eating. So in terms of long-term success, you really want to focus on these things, not just these things. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you